Boom, and we're live on LinkedIn AI Journal page today. Today, I'm really excited to be joining you all and appreciate you tuning in from wherever you are in the world. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to know what the audience is we have today with us. And today, I'm really excited to bring you a special guest and someone that I've connected with offline. I'm really excited to bring with and have a great conversation with you today with Prashant Natarajan. So, Prashant, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. We've got a lot of topics we're going to get through. We've got a lot of interesting conversations that we want to delve into. I want to get your opinion on how you see the world changing through AI and ML. I want to talk about your brand new book, which is brilliant. I've got a copy right here, and it's been amazing to flick through this, and I'm sure we'll delve into it. But before we kick off and we get into the topics today, we have Prashant. Can you please give us a quick overview of who you are? Because I've seen you've held some pretty remarkable roles at companies such as Deloitte and Oracle, and your experience with AI and machine learning, and what your kind of background's been, and what's led you to your role with H2O.ai today, please.
Tom, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the show. I'm already a big fan of your work. So it's really fantastic that we are starting this conversation both with the book in the hand, also with a lot of promise and potential in front of us for enterprise AI and
Yeah,
digital transformation. And also on a day when H2O.ai just released Hydrogen Torch, which
amazing.
is our brand new no code deep learning product, and more on that later. So very glad to be here. Thank you for the kind intro. I lead strategy and products for Document AI and also for the verticals, specifically healthcare, life sciences, health insurance, and government on the Document AI side of the house horizontally across verticals. And I'm absolutely honored and privileged to work, and this is a fact, with the world's largest collection of Kaggle grandmasters at H2O, widely considered to be the top data scientists in various things, whether it's structured data based machine learning or NLP or computer vision, time series, etc. And in previous lives, as you know, Tom, I have spent world in the product space quite a bit at
Yeah,
Oracle, McKesson, Siemens, also in the management consulting space at Deloitte, and also on the business side of the house at Unum and Siemens. So kind of had the, I guess, fortune to work not just in the vendor space, but also in the business and management consulting space. So as a result of that, it has given me a unique perspective, I think, to
yeah.
look at what makes not just AI, but AI driven digital transformation here and real.
Yeah, I love it as well because you touched on it, Prashant, and the awesome things. And speaking with your team and what you've been releasing, you've got some awesome products and you've got some awesome add-ons coming through H2O AI, and it's really awesome to see how you're innovating it. But before we get into that, I mean, I really do want to touch on this because it's an interest of mine, Prashant, when I look at things of. And I mean, we exist to really break down how people can understand topics such as machine learning, and as your book is titled and very correctly titled, Demystifying AI. So it's been a very well received book, and it's had a lot of praise, and it's a bestseller, and you've got some great co-authors. Can you give us a bit of an idea of what made you and the co-authors find it a fitting time to release this book, and what you've seen change with the state of the art data science and machine learning studies that you mentioned in the book? Where did that all tie in, Prashant?
So I think there's a few things that happened, right? If you kind of take a look at the last book I wrote, which was 2017, which you liked as well,
Yeah,
it was kind of looking at not just machine learning, deep learning, AI, ML, and data at that point in time. There's a
yeah,
lot that has happened, which we'll touch upon. But more importantly, I think what is happening here, Tom, primarily is that it's becoming real, right?
yeah,
When you take a look at what's happening with the digital first companies, again, I know we want to touch upon that, and
yeah,
companies that are going through digital transformation, AIML has become the way of business for certain companies.
yeah,
It's not an afterthought, it's not an after thing. It's how they are running their business today.
yeah,
Whether it is deep personalization or understanding the customer better, serving the customer better, creating new products and services that improve the customer's experience, right?
yeah,
Staying ahead of the competition, but also recognizing new opportunities that are not possible. Today, we live in a world where datafication, the creation of data, has happened in the last, say, 10 years and only continues to increase. So, I always, in previous conversations, Tom, you and I have talked about, right? We don't want we don't want to keep working on that data. that data must be made to work for us.
Yeah.
Because data that's collected and not put to use is like my sad life on a Sunday, all
Yeah.
dressed up and nowhere to go. We want to treat data better than that.
Yeah.
So the way we do that is we do automated feature engineering, we do
Yeah.
auto ML, we make it easy, we create products like hydrogen torch, document AI. Why are those important? It's not about the products themselves. The products basically make it easier for businesses to realize value and realize outcomes. And
Yeah.
when you realize value and outcomes, then you will be more successful. Success breeds success. So the book was all about, okay, what's the state of the state, so to speak, with AI/ML today? Certain players, certain enterprises, way ahead.
Yeah.
Many trying to catch up, some trying to still figure out. So
Yeah.
we want to help those other two categories because they are the legacy businesses that make up the world. They employ billions of people, they serve billions of people. So, how can we democratize AI
Yeah.
and bring it to bear? Not just for AI applications, but as both a precursor and also secondary and tertiary users of digital transformation and business outcomes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I like how you got that thinking as well, because some people sometimes over miss that and they don't really consider how it can be applied to different sectors, as you're saying, and what the kind of roadmaps are behind it. 'Cause it's the one frustration I have, Prashant, and you touched on it there. People don't clearly think about the roadmap for what they want to use tools and technologies that you were touching on to actually bring good change to the business and actually bring successful results, which is what I loved about this book, because it really, I mean, I always tell people I'm not a technical person. I'm not a coder. I'm not someone that knows machine learning inside out. I'm someone that looks at it from a top level, and I think, how can I communicate this to someone, as you said, and as we've said, that more businesses are increasingly using data. They increasingly need to get the most juice out of what they're doing. So I'd love to know, in this book, I really loved how you weave data, analytics, AI, and the cloud. Cloud being a huge area at the moment. We're seeing edge computing, all the big areas, especially within, I'm seeing manufacturing, for example. And you bring it into the current state of enterprise digital transformation. Why is it, and you were touching on it there, but maybe delve in with an example or two. Why is it important, this relationship between all of these technologies, and how people can use them to enable their business, whether it's someone that fully understands AI or not? How can they use it to have successful digital transformation, Prashant?
Yeah, I'll take a very real example of something that I think is universal to all of us globally,
Yeah,
which is, I think is a great example, is what we are dealing with this pandemic that has created so much pain, suffering, misery,
yeah,
but along with that also resilience and opportunity,
yeah,
right? So one of the things we did was, as a part of both H2O.ai's data science capabilities and our products, and also the very strong democratizing AI for good
yeah,
initiatives, our healthcare team worked with a leading health system uh, that is spread across the United States and parts of Europe in order to build a COVID forecaster and a capacity simulator that can be used, say, by the NHS, or can be used by a private or a public hospital in the US or anywhere else.
yeah,
So, what we did was we took a look at the public data that was available.
yeah,
We augmented the data with some other data sets that were available. And not only did we make that go live at the customer, they are then using it to manage various other things downstream. It's not just about a forecaster or simulator, obviously. We
yeah,
also took that tool and made it available for public use. It's on the H2AI website. And if you want to figure out how to use it in the NHS or France or whatever, contact us and we'll figure out how to extend that for you, right? So the question is, you asked, how do we bridge that gap? So the models, the scorers, the ML ops parts of it, which are all a part of what you need to do,
mm,
the auto ML, these were all done by data scientists, right? At the customers end, at our end, top people. But then the key thing is, okay, like how does it make it real
yeah,
for a hospital administrator or a nurse or a physician on the floor? Because they don't have the time really. They're saving lives,
yeah,
right? What they want to know is, okay, how can I use it today? How can I use it 3 hours later? What does this do to my ICU beds? So what we have to do as technologists, it's always our responsibility, our duty, shall I say,
Yeah.
to serve the business. Right? Technology doesn't exist for technology's sake.
Yeah.
People use technology, whether in our personal lives or professional lives, to accomplish something.
Yeah.
Accomplish something and go back to what you were doing as soon as possible. So the
Yeah.
way we can do that is create a business front end, create a portfolio of app stores, figure out how we can embed it. You can do API calls or we can put it within your workflow. That is
Yeah.
how you bring the best of data science, the best of data to
Yeah.
business users without telling them that, oh my God, you all have to go back to school to learn linear algebra,
Yeah.
because they are not going back to school and maybe they've already learned it. They're saving lives now. We will
Yeah.
focus on linear algebra and statistics and probability. You focus on saving lives or running your business.
Yeah, I love that, Prashant, as well, because it's such a key point to me to focus on your strengths. And as you're saying, don't start trying to become something that you don't want to learn or you don't need to understand. Hire the professionals and get the people in that are devoting their lives to this. And I think it's such an important message because sometimes, and I know this is slightly off topic, but when you look at things like citizen developers, how much do they actually want to learn that or be taken away from their key responsibilities and their key priorities? Maybe they should have a fundamental understanding. But it's such a good point that you make of how to make sure you've got the right equipment, you've got the right people, and you've got that right mindset. I think is a key thing for us because really it's not the technology that drives change. You can get whatever fancy technology you want, but it's getting the specialists such as H2O that can say, okay, here's where your real problem is, and here where your real challenge is. Now we can enable it. So I think that's such a great point, Prashant.
And I think
Well,
to that point, I would say that I'll use a metaphor, right? If
please.
somebody asks me, I'm going to give you the choice of one eye, which eye
Yeah.
do you want, your right eye or your left eye? I'm going to say thank you so much, but I would like to keep both,
Yeah.
because as long as I'm healthy and I've got it, I
Yeah.
need both for optimal thing. So I would say use that metaphor because the success with AI and digital transformation requires both the eyes. It
Yeah.
requires red people and blue people to come together to create purple people. And what do I mean by that? It requires technologists, it requires operations leaders, business people to come together, and other multidisciplinary facilities, right? So our focus is, how do we make that easier? Our job here is, and that's what I write about the book also, Tom, which you liked a lot, right? Our
Yeah. I love it.
job here doesn't stop with models and apps. Our job here starts with converting decision making in the enterprise from very nascent,
Yeah.
going to basic, all the way to a symbiotic decision making where AI doesn't supplant humans. AI doesn't automate humans completely,
Yeah.
but instead, the symbiotic decision making is amplification and augmentation coming together. And I think that's what I talk about with the impact framework. In
Yeah.
how do we get to that? The A in AI is, of course, artificial intelligence, but it's
Yeah.
also augmented and amplified intelligence.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I really want to get to that impact framework as well. I've got a question for you on that a bit later on. But where do you see it then, Prashant? What's your viewpoint from, and we touched on it slightly in the past question or two questions ago now, looking at 2017 to 2022, the world of AI, machine learning and data science. How's it changed? What would you say to people that are thinking or they're coming into this landscape? Because it's a very hot topic at the moment. What would you say is been changing and where would you say you've seen the most kind of progress?
I think there's a few trends that have happened, right? I think the
Yeah,
first is, in general, not just the awareness, but the maturity of organizations that are deploying AI solutions is increasing. In
yeah,
2017, it was still mostly experimentation with some leaders.
yeah,
But a lot of good work happened in R&D, right? So I'll
yeah.
touch upon that. But I think the first thing is, organizations in general are realizing that they need to put their data to work and get value out of the data, not just insights, but value, which is, in my opinion, one level above insights.
Yeah,
It's putting monetary value on insights, whether it's
yeah,
savings or revenue or human impact, right?
yeah,
Human monetary impact. And so that's one thing. The second thing is, on the other hand, understanding what it takes to go beyond the nascent and basic levels still seems to be things where people want help.
yeah,
And why I say that is it's not that when executives and CXOs come to me, I don't ever pretend that I know their business better than they do.
Yeah.
Of course not. That will never happen. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, we know what they can do with AI.
Yeah.
We know how they can put that data to work. We can give them examples of what others are doing, how we are doing. We eat our own dog food at H2O. Every
Yeah.
innovation that we build gets put to use internally also. Because in the end, we are the largest and oldest open source AI ML company on the planet,
Yeah.
right? So for us, that community is very important. So I think those are two trends that are happening at the enterprise level: increasing maturity, but at the same time a desire to go up the levels and
Yeah.
wanting to know how products and solutions would take them there. So the
Yeah.
trend that seems to be happening is you bring the products, you bring the solutions, you bring the data science expertise, we will bring our business knowledge, we'll bring our market needs, we'll bring our team, whether it's business, IT, data scientists, and let's build together. Let's
Yeah.
co-create together. So our partnerships, for example, as you know, with several leading companies globally, we are focusing on that, truly democratizing AI in the enterprise. The last thing I would say, which I think is the most important thing, Tom,
Yeah.
is and I may sound a bit funny coming from me because I spent the first half of my career building the world's largest data warehouses and data lakes and whatnot at Oracle for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's, but I would say, what have you done with those data warehouses? How have you put them to work? Are
yeah.
you spending more time on governing and managing and struggling with the data, or are you unleashing auto ML on it? Are you unleashing auto feature engineering? Do it, right? Experimentation is a cyclical process. It's not a once and done thing. Do it
Yeah.
and put the data to work. But the most important thing which we are seeing, which you will also see in general, where the 70 to 85% of the data in the modern enterprise come from, whether you're a small, mid, or large business, it comes
Yeah.
from documents, it comes from images, it comes from pictures.
Yeah.
So hence the biggest change that has happened in the 4 years, 5 years, the state of computer vision, the state of intelligent OCR, optical character recognition, the
Yeah.
state of natural language processing has increased and developed so much
Yeah.
that we are able to put that to work on these documents. But more importantly, what we are learning is customers want end to end solutions. They want the product not just to do one piece. They don't want you to just build models of a product and, oh, we'll pick up something else for MLOps. We'll build an app store somewhere else. They don't want that
Yeah.
because it makes their life difficult. On one hand, they want to go fast. On the
Yeah.
other hand, you can't have fast if you've got bits and pieces. So there
Mm.
is certainly a consolidation that is also happening in general in industry. I would say mostly globally too.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point because it goes back to my point. If you don't know your roadmap, how are you supposed to go fast if you don't know where the parts fit in? And I think something I always it's a great saying. They say, and it goes to your point, Prashant. It's when a warehouse has a problem and they can't find where the problem is, so they hire this engineer for a much more premium price, and he comes in and he finds a problem within a minute or something, whatever the example is, and they say, but your fee's so high. And he goes, well, I knew exactly where to look and I knew exactly where to fix it. And it's the same thing. Once you bring the right people in, you can fix a problem. And as you said, you can start running with the technology and getting that collaboration at a much better pace, which I think is so crucial for people to understand. Because we had a webinar and there was a great guy on there called Ed Housley, and he was looking at it from, is it worth building something internally and spending all that time, resources where you're going to get it wrong? Or is it better to find the right people that can assist you on a journey? And as you said, Prashant, collaborate with you on that to really give maximum value. So I think it's a real important point you mentioned. And we've actually had Chigozi, who's chimed in the conversation, saying AI does not automate humans and giving you a big thumbs up for that comment. So he's clearly a big fan of what you're preaching at the moment, Prashant, with H2O.ai.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think one of the key conversations which I'm already seeing and we'll see more and more, Tom, as AI becomes ubiquitous in the enterprise, and it's
Mm.
going to happen faster, right? I mean, you and I touched upon in the pre-show about the digital divide, right?
Yeah.
The digital divide when I was a kid growing up was about certain countries versus certain countries, or certain geographical regions or certain geographical regions, right? It was
Yeah.
about, oh, how are you doing in India and Africa compared to the West, Western Europe? Valid question.
Yeah.
Today's digital divide has changed completely. Today's digital divide is no longer geographical. Today's digital divide is technological, and it's also in the enterprise. In other words, if you look at what is happening in India, if you look at what's happening in China or Australia, great example,
Yeah.
or Japan, right? Or Africa, for example, like H2O with our C-Trek work or collaboration with C-Trek. H2O is kind of helping out do the data science on the seafloor mapping globally in mostly underserved countries. So
Yeah.
machine learning has reached them. We are doing our bit to take it there, right? We are doing
Fantastic.
it on other things. The point is the digital divide today is between enterprises. It's
Yeah.
between a digital first enterprise that had the luxury of starting in the last 20 years, starting with a data and a digital first mindset, which
Yeah.
allows them to apply AI easily. Then there's 95% of the other enterprises, which are large, medium, and small enterprises, which employ most people on the globe and that serve most people on the globe. And
Mm.
how do they make that leap? I think that is the thing that I'm truly passionate about. And that's the thing that my colleagues are truly passionate about.
Yeah.
To do that, we have to continuously calculate value drivers, value streams, use cases to your point, and
Yeah.
we have to bring the humans into the loop
Yeah.
continuously, data scientists, business users, operational leaders, so that they can inform the AI they want
Yeah.
and personalize it for their needs.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to H2O.ai's mission, which is to make, operate, and innovate, right? To make sure that you're going along that path with them, and to make sure, as you said, there's no one left untouched, and to really make sure you're helping all parts of us. I think that's a really cautious thing, and really awesome to do as well, to be part of those kind of trends that are going to shape the world of tomorrow, which is really cool. And
Sri was interviewed on a news channel yesterday, specifically talking about things like, I'm sorry, that was Sri Satish Abati, H2AI CEO,
yeah,
interviewed yesterday. I'll send you the link later, Tom. He
yeah,
talks about some of these things, the COVID forecaster and simulator,
yeah,
this work with Sea-Trek on ocean floor mapping, how we are helping out with wildlife conservation. So what we are doing here is we are taking all of the work we are doing in the open source community with our customers, commercial work. We are bringing those innovations to also do greater good.
yeah.
Because in the end, it is not just about me as a customer, it's also about me as a community member. And we take that mission very seriously. And I'm extremely lucky to work at a place where we share those values.
Yeah, it's a good place as well, because looking up at what you're doing, and obviously we're in contact outside this LinkedIn Live to see what the focus is being, and to see the kind of, as you said, the document AI and hydrogen torch and all these different services or products or focuses that are coming in to increase that AI maturity and to relate to the B2C, but also the B2B. And we've had a person come in that said, from you, Prashant, it's a great perspective to bring in people with different skill sets, because that is where a lot of people sometimes miss the mark. And what we were touching to earlier, do they have that knowledge and that insight to bring it forward? So I'd love to.
Starting with our children. So that's another thing that I and we are passionate about at H2O. In order to create effective, empowered digital citizens of tomorrow,
Yeah,
we have to create not just knowledge, but also awareness of where AI and technology can help. Because just as the smartphone created a revolution 15 years ago
yeah,
for our kids, right? I'm old enough, so I can tell you, obviously, I am lucky to have kids, but they are going to grow up in a very different world. They are going to grow up in a world where that symbiosis world is going to be natural to them.
yeah.
And how do we create that responsible, ethical world that we want our children to grow in? That's a personal passion. And that's why I and my co-authors wrote this book.
Yeah, it's such an important point as well, Prashant, because I see it as my iPhone here. It's a digital extension of myself, and that's where I think we're going to see. And I know this isn't relating to our conversation, Prashant, but I can see what we talk around VR and AR, and my kids and your kids, they're going to be documenting a lot more on their phones. I look at my parents, and all they've got are like old school photographs. I can't really see any videos of them, but here I've got everything documented. It's going up to the cloud. It's going to be a completely different experience. My kids, whenever I do have them, hopefully have them, are going to see a lot more into my life than I've ever seen into my parents' lives or my brother's lives, which are a lot older. So it's a really important point to consider. And to audience watching, to take Prashant's point on board of how do we make sure we're prepared in the correct way, and how do we make sure that, as you said, it's ethical, it's protected, and it's all the right things that go. And you talk about it in this book, but you also talk around a lot of things in this book, and it's got a lot of it is, as it says, a playbook. It's a rule book for how to do things and how to get up to speed on certain topics, but also how to put strategy in place. Can you talk me through the digital divide that we were just talking about briefly? What and the contrast digital first organizations that are transforming digitally? What's the distinction in this book, and what should draw people's the audience's attention to specifically on that point within this book with your fantastic co-authors, Prashant?
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll just put it down to a framework, right? Because I think it kind of gives a ready reckoner on what we should do. And I'm not saying that the digital first organizations, again, redefined as organizations that have mostly come into existence in the last 20 years, and we are
Yeah,
talking about e-commerce firms, we are talking about apps, that kind of digital experience first, right?
yeah,
The media streaming folks, they've had the advantage of not having to worry about legacy,
yeah,
not just legacy data. They've not even had to worry about legacy customers.
yeah,
They haven't had to worry about multi-generational users in some cases. In some cases they have had to, yes, but they've had the advantage of not being encumbered by the past. They've had a chance to start fresh. On the other hand, a lot of organizations that have been in business for, and it's not a magical cutoff, let's say before the 80s, that were in existence, going back all the way to 200 or 300 years, as you find several companies in your neck of the woods in Europe, in
yeah,
UK and Europe. You take a look at them, they have been running very successful business. The fact that they have been around tells us that they are successful.
yeah,
But how do they compete with this new brand of user and customer experiences?
yeah,
So, the first difference between a digital first organization and an organization going through digital transformation is the type and the quality of digital experiences. That
yeah,
can be engagement, that can be satisfaction, that can be accessing a new product or a service, being educated. That's the first difference. Digital first organizations tend to do that much better.
yeah,
Just a fact, right? The second thing is, I would say that digital first organizations tend to follow what I call the impact framework in chapter one, which you
yeah,
mentioned earlier, more than the organizations that are going through digital transformation. Now, I'm not saying that digital first is good and digital transformation is bad. By no means. I think there will be more organizations, more humans being impacted by digital transformation as
yeah,
opposed to the digital first organizations that exist today. So I actually have a bias toward, very strong bias and preference towards digital transformation, right? So what does that mean? So how and why the impact framework, right? So you
yeah,
could ask very justifiably, Tom, you're a very nice person, but you could ask justifiably saying, oh, Prashant, I've heard frameworks. Consulting company A has got 3 frameworks.
yeah,
Consulting company C has 15 frameworks. Every vendor company out there has a framework. Why on earth should people buy your book and read it to understand what the framework is? Well, because look, this is the best guide for you to get success in the enterprise for around $45.
yeah,
If you want to spend $4.5 million to go pay for a proprietary framework, go for it. It's your money. All I would say is the framework must be open.
yeah,
Number one. Number two, it must be transparent. Number three, it must be customizable.
yeah,
Number four, it should be scalable. And what I mean by that is you can have one department or one group or one country in a company that's at a higher maturity than the other that's low.
yeah,
They don't both have to go through the same process. So,
yeah,
what is this impact framework? So, basically, the impact framework is just 6 things, right, which matter to all of us. The first is the ability to leverage imagination. Imagination in this context being defined as invention, creating new things,
Yes.
discovery, creating new knowledge or
Yeah.
new increments of knowledge, or innovation, which is a better way of doing things. But the key thing for all of that is we must focus on how those three support imagination, not just at the company level and the team level, but at
Yeah.
the individual level, because you want to empower that talent, right? And we talk about how we can do that. The next is maturity, which touched upon, and I talk right from the 5 levels of maturity and how you can traverse. And I don't make motherhood apple pie statements
Mm.
about you must become more mature, you should do this, you should do that. I'm saying, like, okay, this is what maturity is. If
Yeah.
it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
If you fall under these criteria, you can start with that as a good point.
Yeah.
You don't have to cross my palm with a $4.5 million coin for me to tell your future. You read
Yeah.
your own future, right? So the I stands for imagination, the M for maturity. The P basically stands for a very important thing that you pointed out, which is people.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you can't transform digitally without involving people as decision makers, as stakeholders, as consumers, as operators,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we talked about, right? So how do we do that? And then I touch about the kind of skill sets you need. How do you do upskilling? What do you upskill on? The role of what, for example, I think it was McKinsey that called it the analytics translator,
Yeah.
right? And things like that. And then how do you hire data scientists? How do you use data scientists?
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, if all I'm going to say, if somebody tells you, oh, you're a citizen data scientist, right, you don't need any data science at all, you can get the same results that you get out of H2O products without any data science. um, all I would say is there's limitations. That's not necessarily true, like you yourself said, Tom, right?
Yeah.
So but you same time you want to enable citizens too. So that's kind of the thing that we want, right? Like I talked about the two eyes. You
Yeah.
can't say that I'm going to give away one eye because I can still see with the other. No, you need both eyes. you
Yeah.
and you need backup. So people, the
Yeah.
A is what we touched upon: augmentation, amplification. And this is a provocative point. I say augmentation and amplification as opposed to merely automation. Because I think businesses are so focused on automation today. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's wrong. We should do automation. Document AI allows you to automate things, right? RPA allows you to automate things. With Document AI, our customers are getting fantastic results. Of course, it automates, but it not just automates, it augments the human experience. The people who use Document AI, not the data scientists, but the end users, are
Yeah.
able to do more. They are able to spend more time with their customers and patients. It's improving the patient experience and the customer experience. So, by
Yeah.
definition, automation is not the end goal. Augmentation and amplification are the end goal. So augmentation is machines helping humans do human things.
Yeah.
Amplification is symbiosis, the highest maturity level on the maturity curve. It's humans and machines coming together to create new value that either can't on their own.
Yeah.
The P is people, A is augmentation, amplification, T is transformation. In the end, we want to do all of this to transform, right? And so the C, sorry, the C and the T, the C is culture.
Yeah.
Because a lot
Yeah.
of these books on this topic, they either focus on the business side and strategy, or they focus on deep technology algorithms. What they don't tell you is, okay, how do you bridge that gap in the middle? There is a thing called culture.
Yeah.
And how do you use AI to change that culture, which I think is pretty unique to us?
Yeah. That's such a good point as well, because people overlook that, Prashant, when they, especially when you touch on the points such as how you can scale something and it's a big problem. You see how's it scalable, and especially with legacy systems, or as you were saying, companies that aren't naturally or prepared for it. And we did some research that showed just how much the chief data officers like being employed at the moment, because their key role, as we see it, they're still missing in parts of the culture, but trying to get a legacy company and someone that has so old processes in place, they're such a key person because you need to understand, you need to analyze the whole business, which is how I see a chief data officer. They look at everything within the business, how do we transform it? And then they're doing that, or I see them doing that. And I'd love to get what your viewpoint is, Prashant, because they want to scale it and they want to do bigger and they want to do better. And as soon as they've hit that target, they want to do more. And as soon as you've learned that model, you want to employ another model and whatever it is. And I think what you're getting to there is such an important point because some people aren't going to care around the technology. They're there to focus on the people or on the customers and to give that experience. They don't want to be involved in the deep tech. So it's real. How do you see companies, if I can ask you, Prashant, getting around what I see a common question? How do we scale this? How do we get better at implementing it?
So the first thing I would say is uh, make the right choices,
Yeah.
right? Or even if it is not the right choice, make more appropriate choices and experiment to make it more right.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges is we always try to go for like perfection or big bang, right? What I would say is start small, build on successes, go up from there. Certain cases, big bang does work. And we have seen certain examples where you have inspired leadership. The whole organization has a reason to change. They get behind. And some of these are multi-billion dollar organizations. It does happen. You ask me for, I'll say a few things, right? I would say the first thing is uh, don't just look at AI as an end state. It's not about a model. It's not about a scorer. It's not about that. Figure
Yeah.
out how to use those to create new and revised AI products and services as a part of digital transformation. First thing.
Yeah.
So the way I would do that is you don't have to create the next new AI chatbot or the next new document AI on your own.
Yeah.
There are other people who do it. There are a lot of companies who do chatbots. Of course, I'm biased. I'm going to say, and justifiably biased, I'm going to say for document AI, you should come and talk to me because
Yeah.
H2O is the best product out there. No, I'm not just saying that. I believe that to be true. Our customers believe it to be true. But how do you convert physical products, digital services, and human experiences with AI
Yeah.
embedded in them to create better of that? First thing. Second thing is, I think this is a significant challenge, right? We have to figure out how to staff teams. There is more need for data scientists than there are data scientists. There are more business needs than there are data science capabilities in an organization today. So
Yeah.
that's how you leverage products, right? You still go and find data scientists, hire data scientists, but give them the power, enable them by giving them products that will help them do more, that will
Yeah.
help them be more successful, and that will help the business see value out of what they are doing. The third thing I would say, coming back to culture, it's a very important point again,
Yeah.
is address the influence of lore and legend in the enterprise when they become impediments.
Yeah.
Oh, AI is not going to work. We tried AI 7 years ago and it didn't work. Um,
What's changed?
a lot has changed, right?
Yeah.
And then second is, but at the same time, address those concerns. Just
Yeah.
because somebody says it doesn't work, it doesn't mean you dismiss their point of view. Understand what didn't work, because there may be a bunch of hidden nuggets there that may
Mm.
lead to new use cases for AI or may need to lead to new solutions, right?
Yeah.
I would also say the key thing is focus on AI should not be, I would say, a goal. AI should not be a tool.
Yeah.
AI, as I define it in the book, is augmented and amplified intelligence.
Yeah.
If it is augmented and amplified, then our interaction with AI and how do we get value out of it becomes the new mindset
Yeah.
and not just the new technology. And I think that last part is the most important thing, because if we can develop that, measure that, and improve on that, then we create more democracy in the enterprise and you reduce the digital divide, not only within your organization, but the digital divide with the digital first companies.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point because I look at it from, and I hope everyone knows this around the AI journal, the education side of thinking. I always get the question, Prashant, when I'm speaking at conferences or I'm in conversations with people, and it's that classic question of, oh, isn't AI coming to take my job, or isn't AI coming to do this, and isn't AI with a maybe negative tangent on it? But I think, look, I completely understand why you think that, because people get scared or people feel apprehensive around things they don't understand. And I think that's why I really loved what you were getting at with the book, because it's demystifying it. And once you understand something, you feel a lot more confident doing it. And you feel like there's a lot more ways around it, back to your point, thinking just because it didn't work this way, I now actually understand the roadmaps and understand how it can work. I've got more applications to do it. What do you think?
So, Tom, in the last my last book and this one, the last book was written in 2015, 16, 17 when the AI hype was at its peak.
Yeah.
We were talking about self-driving cars picking me up and taking me to the UK where you are and then bringing me back in 45 minutes. We were talking about all kinds of stuff. We were all A lot of people were arguing about when artificial general intelligence is going to wipe out something. Is it 2015, 2025, or 2035? Right?
Yeah.
But that's not what has happened. And even the full blown fears about AI driven job losses haven't happened. And I
Yeah.
speak at this in length, both as a strategic person and also a student of the history of technology. And
Yeah.
mostly that's what I do. I document technology, I document the uses of technology. That's what my 5 books are about, right?
Yeah.
Humans, individual humans and human societies, and I challenge anybody to prove it. If you are in AI, especially, and you say what I'm going to say now is not true, I challenge you to prove it.
Yeah.
Humans and human societies have always used technology to benefit us. The
Yeah.
day there will be some exceptions, and that gets corrected quickly. Course
Yeah.
correction happens. But if you take a look at the wheel, if you take a look at agriculture, if you take a look at the printing press, if you take a look at paper, right, every single, even frankly in fruits, vegetables, meats, right,
Yeah.
every innovation that we have done, to the steam engine, right, to the industrial revolution, to where we are with computers today with AI/ML, right, the cloud,
Yeah.
we want technology to serve us. Don't believe me? Go read the ancient Greek, Indian, and Chinese epics, which are full of examples of people 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 years ago talking
Yeah.
about wanting to create robots and these hybrid machines that will serve us better. That is
Yeah.
our goal. So, in the end, AI is going, and I said this 5 years ago. I'm saying it now. You can quote me on it. AI
Yeah.
will create more jobs. AI
Uh-huh.
will create better experiences.
Yeah.
AI will create a better society. AI will create a better civilization.
Yeah. I always agree. I completely agree. And I always just think if you knew more around, and I always think if you look at the stats, if you look back over time, we're at a pinnacle. We've never been as advanced as we have. We've never been at such a high wealth for a world and everything we've got going on. And then you look at stats from when people make massive shifts. I mean, I look at this one, Prashant, when Satya Nadella came into Microsoft and he did the massive shift to take everything to the cloud. Everything about the company, from its stock prices to the amount of employees, to the amount of customers, to the amount of business units, the amount of innovation, it all went through the roof. And that proved to me there's no figures, like obviously there's occasional glitches, as you said, but everything around AI it's a massive exploding area that's only going to benefit more and more and more. Look at it in our phones. If you look at NLP and everything that comes around, it's something that I feel passionate about, because I think that's what I want to try and do through things like this, through this live, to help them understand how much it's gonna really benefit them and how much it is benefiting them already, not just in terms of personal use and having things automated and better customer experience, but also new jobs, new businesses. Look at all the new businesses that are getting created because of AI. They're struggling to find people to fill the roles, and I think it got no sense to you with this saying of saying, the negative things, because it's like Gary Vee said. He said any technology, whenever it gets introduced, it's no worse than society or any other technology. It's going to have problems, but every technology does bring us to a new, better, higher level overall. So I think it's a very good
It,
point.
it creates more prosperity. It
Exactly.
creates better societies. It creates better communication, right?
Yeah.
You can argue about whether it's too much or too little and all of that, and that's individual opinion and society opinion. But in the end, I see us now in the golden age of technology, where that data can be put to work to benefit enterprises, to benefit users and individuals,
Yeah.
and more importantly, to benefit the communities we live in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Prashant. And I just quickly, someone's, I don't know if you've got any more points to this, Prashant, but I want to bring it up. Someone's asked a question to you in the channel, which is, hi, Prashant. what strategy, and we discussed this already, but I don't know if you've got another comment towards it. What strategy do you put in place to ensure organizations start out on the right direction adopting AI?
I would say the first thing is they should listen more to Tom's AI Journal show because he covers
Thank
this topic at length.
you.
The second thing, from a very obvious thing, because we have those success stories at H2O,
Yeah,
our healthcare and life sciences AI use case catalog, which is solution driven and stuff that is all live in production, 150 use cases.
amazing. That's all.
150 use cases. This is all stuff that is done, right? These are things where our Kaggle grandmasters have won global competitions on vaccine preservation, on diabetic retinopathy, on looking at the customer experience, right? So I think that's very important. Is the right the right strategy, I would say, includes the choice of the right product, the
Yes.
right people, and also understanding how to fit that within policy. The
Mm,
last may surprise some people in the private sector, but if you already see what's happening with AI, governments are increasingly demanding more. They
yeah,
want responsible AI, they want ethical AI, they want to see more interpretability and explainability. So,
yeah. Good point.
it's a big weakness in your strategy if the AI ML product you're selecting doesn't provide world class interpretive and explainability. You know what? You will
Mm,
spend all the time building those models, and the regulator will say, no insurance company, no banking company, no healthcare company, we are not going to let you use it because not only do we don't understand what it does, even you don't understand what it does. So
yeah,
its strategy doesn't, and that's what I write in the book. Strategy doesn't exist in a vacuum.
yeah,
The right strategy, right, each organization has to decide. Of course, come and talk to me, I'll help you with it. I've
yeah,
done it for multiple global organizations. I'm happy to help without any expectations in return. If you're an executive, of course, right, which you are, if you're on Tom's show, please
yeah,
reach out. No, but at the same time, I would say that strategy and the choices you make to deliver on that strategy are very important.
yeah,
The wrong choice can be costly.
yeah,
It need not be a dead end if you go with the wrong choice on any of those, right? People, products, how to manage policy. It's just that the lack of momentum may create other challenges where it becomes difficult to restart efforts. That's what leads to, oh, we tried AI, it didn't work.
yeah. That's a brilliant point to wrap it up on as well. We also had a comment saying AI is everywhere. We just need to recognize. And we've got people. Thank you, Mark, for sharing the link of where to get Prashant's book, which we'll put a link in this afterwards as well. And on that note, Prashant, I would love to just say thank you again for joining. Where can people find out more about you? Because this book is brilliant, and the one we've read before, we've spoke before on how helpful it can be to get these kind of strategies. Where can people find out more around you, sir, about you, connect with you, and get involved with purchasing your book or with H2O.ai?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, obviously I work for a product company that focuses on value, business value, and digital transformation, right? AIML product company. So H2O.ai, simple. It's just like you see on the logo out there. Um, my email ID is Prashant at H2O.ai, first name at H2O.ai, and that's how you can reach me. I am pretty active on LinkedIn, sharing and learning, and you will see me hanging around Tom quite a bit. Um, and that's all. And that's all. And I don't think you want more than three ways to contact me because it may. Uh,
Well, three ways is enough. That's a good way to get in touch with you, Prashant. And yeah, I've definitely, since
The
we've
book
connected.
is available on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. It's available on the various Taylor and Francis sites. It's available globally. I would say about 35 bookstores around the world. And Tom, I will say this: thanks for the opportunity, and also thank you for us talking about H2AI on a very important day for our customers today, Hydrogen Torch. And I really appreciate your kind words about the book coming from somebody like you who talks to global thought leaders on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That compliment means a lot.
Brilliant. I really appreciate it. We've actually had one more question. I don't know if you've got time to
Oh,
answer
oh yeah.
that or, before we sign off. But just to your point, we'll put a link in for the books and we'll put a link into the library after this so you can go away and take your own time to look through it and get in touch with Prashant and anyone watching this as a recording as well. So final question, which I'd love to know and really appreciate taking the time to do is, Prashant. Hello, Prashant. How does AI influence the current production and manufacturing industries? Which is
Um,
quite a large question, so maybe we'll link to something as well. But please answer as much
um,
as you can, Prashant.
well, I was just, it is a large question. It's an important question, a very
Yeah,
important question. There's multiple use cases. We actually have some use cases in the book on that from a couple of companies in manufacturing, process management, etc. And I would say there are 6 out of the chapters in the book deal with that topic. Because what we have done here, as Tom touched upon previously, we took a vertical view, looking at specific verticals: financial services, insurance, retail, e-commerce, others, right? And we said, here are some examples of how people are doing it and what you can learn from leaders. And
yeah,
we see lots of leadership examples here. We also looked at supply chain, HR, sales and marketing, all the horizontal functions. So the
yeah,
book is split between horizontal functions, between vertical industries. It starts off with strategy and the impact framework. And most importantly, it finally concludes with case studies, because
yeah.
people want to know, this is all
Yeah.
great. Thank you, but give us some examples of who's done this before. So that's
Yeah.
the case studies. Happy to continue the conversation offline with
Yeah.
the person.
Well, I'm so glad you said that as a good way to finish because I love case studies. It annoys me when I get on and people don't show me a case study. I think as soon as you can paint me a picture, Prashant, I've got it a lot clearer. So that's where I'm a big fan. But Prashant, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. I really appreciate you taking the time because I know you've got a lot of things going on with H2O.ai, and really grateful for you sharing with our audience today, people that have joined live and the people that will be watching this as a recording. Thank you to the audience for joining to learn from Prashant today, and hopefully this is the first of many that we get to take a bit of your time to learn even more. So again, thank you for joining, Prashant, and wishing you a great rest of the week and brilliant to see what you and the team are doing at H2O AI.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.